36 notches. 36 lives taken by a single individual whom the Union Army referred to as the Ghost of Tennessee. But what transformed a 57-year-old tobacco farmer into the most deadly sniper of the Civil War? And why has history made such efforts to obscure his narrative? This is not a story of battlefields or gray blunders. This is the authentic account of Jack Hinson, a man who chose not to align with either side until the war compelled him to do so. Imagine a father witnessing Union soldiers display his son's severed heads on his own fence, a neighbor killed due to a long-standing feud, a marksman so dreaded that generals offered $300 in gold, a sum sufficient to purchase a town, for his scalp, yet his name is absent from your textbooks. This evening we reveal the unvarnished truth: how a neutral farmer outperformed entire Union regiments in marksmanship, how he assisted Confederate icon Nathan Bedford Forrest in incinerating a vast stockpile of Union supplies, and how the U.S. Army dedicated 2 years to pursuing a phantom who was intimately familiar with every inch of the area between the rivers, as it was his backyard. Was he a hero, a terrorist, or merely a shattered man who measured his sorrow in bullet wounds? Stay tuned, for what you are about to discover will alter everything you believed about the shadows of the Civil War. But before we commence, please like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. When Jack Hinson initially established his extensive tobacco plantation in the fertile lowlands of Stewart County, Tennessee, he could hardly have foreseen that his homestead would eventually become the focal point of a fierce struggle between the North and the South. The area, later known as Tween the Rivers by locals, due to its location between the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers, evolved into a strategic battleground for military planners. Its steep ridges provided natural defenses, while its mosaic of thriving farms ensured a continuous supply for the armies. However, as Tennessee aligned with the Confederacy in 1861, Hinson maintained a precarious neutrality, caught between his Southern heritage and a pragmatic desire to safeguard his family and livelihood. Hinson's estate, similar to many others in the area, had been shaped from the land through generations of enslaved labor. However, by the onset of the war, he had made the difficult choice to emancipate his enslaved workers, a decision that caused neighbors to gossip. Many formerly enslaved families opted to remain as paid laborers, creating a complex situation that reflected both enduring dependencies and fragile trust. This delicate equilibrium was disrupted when 2 of Hinson's sons, caught up in the fervor of Southern defiance, enlisted with Confederate irregulars. These makeshift units, made up of local hunters, farmers, and idealists, conducted a covert war against Union forces, utilizing their intimate knowledge of rural paths to execute devastating ambushes. Union commanders, who were used to the orderly battles typical of European warfare, became increasingly unsettled by this unconventional form of combat. Their young recruits, many experiencing combat for the first time, flinched at every snapping twig, their anxiety escalating into severe reprisals against civilians. It is at this juncture that Hinson's narrative takes a grim turn. Oral histories from the region recount Union troops raiding the Hinson farm in 1862, reportedly arresting 2 more sons on charges of bushwhacking. According to the tale, the boys were executed without trial, their lifeless heads displayed on gateposts as a warning. Yet, like many stories from the Civil War, the line between fact and legend is blurred. No military records substantiate the atrocity, leaving historians in disagreement. Was this tragedy the catalyst that transformed a neutral farmer into Old Jack, the infamous Confederate sniper? Or had Hinson's neutrality always been a facade, a strategy to collect Union intelligence while serving as a reluctant host to bluecoat officers stationed on his property? Skeptics point out that Hinson's subsequent actions, a lethal campaign against Union River traffic, necessitated military-grade rifles, which a simple farmer would be unlikely to possess. This fuels speculation that he had been secretly supplied with arms by Confederate commanders, anticipating the strategic importance of the region. Others argue that the trauma of losing sons, whether to battle or alleged execution, reflects the experiences of countless Southern families, ordinary individuals radicalized by the brutality of occupation. What is indisputable is that Hinson's narrative encapsulates the corrosive impact of the Civil War on communities, where rivers and ridges served as both refuge and slaughterhouse, and neutrality often proved to be an unattainable dream. Hinson's expansive farmstead, situated in the fertile bends of the Tennessee River, briefly accommodated an unexpected visitor, Union General Ulysses S. Grant. The general's staff officers commandeered the property during their 1862 advance into the area, their polished boots leaving mud stains on Hinson's handcrafted floors. This occupation, a bitter irony considering Hinson's later reputation, signified the onset of his disintegration. While historians debate his exact motivations, a consensus exists that Union occupation policies ignited his fury. Troops stripped farms bare under military necessity mandates, confiscating corn cribs and slaughtering cattle herds, leaving families to confront winter with empty pantries. Even the Union's emancipationist principles soured in this context. His soldiers liberated enslaved laborers, only to compel them into trench-digging duties, replacing plantation overseers with army taskmasters. The ultimate humiliation occurred when blue-coated soldiers set fire to Hinson's homestead, flames consuming decades of hard work in a single night. As his wife held their youngest daughter close, Hinson observed the smoke rising from where his barn had once stood, a man who had constructed his life through labor, now left with only the rifle he had concealed in a hayrick. Neighbors murmured that he remained motionless for hours, whispering, "A man can't kneel when they burn his knees out." Vengeance commenced with a neighbor, a Swiss immigrant whom Hinson accused of betraying Confederate sympathizers to Union patrols. Their conflict, simmering since a disputed boundary marker in 1858, erupted on New Year's Eve, 1862. Hinson followed the man to a creek bed glazed with frost, firing his Kentucky long rifle once. The shot reverberated through the hollows where boys had once fished together, a personal conflict nested within the national disaster. Now fully devoted to the Confederate irregulars, Hinson transformed into a specter of the rivers. He memorized the lazy curves of the Tennessee where Union gunboats would slow, their paddle wheels stirring up white foam. Hidden among limestone bluffs, he would wait for days for a gold-epauletted officer to step onto a deck. His .50 caliber Old Vengeance spoke with a biblical finality, each kill marked by a knife notch in the rifle's walnut stock. Union troops exchanged terrified tales of a phantom capable of shooting around corners, though the reality was much simpler. Hinson was intimately familiar with every ripple and sycamore shadow from decades spent hunting these waters. By the end of the war, the notches had reached 36, although grizzled veterans at crossroads taverns insisted he would surpass triple digits. His legend reached its height while guiding Nathan Bedford Forrest cavalry through backcountry trails to raid Johnsonville's Union Depot in 1864. As flames consumed mountains of Union bacon and bullets, Hinson stood apart, a farmer turned arsonist, observing his enemy's logistics vanish into smoke. Union commanders offered $300 in gold for his capture, a king's ransom that attracted bounty hunters and traders. Yet Hinson outsmarted them all. Once concealing himself for 3 days, submerged in a cypress swamp, breathing through a hollow reed while search parties scoured the shore. Peace brought him no comfort. His son Robert, who had led guerrilla raids in his father's shadow, fell victim to a Union ambush mere weeks before Appomattox. 2 daughters succumbed in a drafty refugee shack, their coughs worsening with each frigid dawn. Hinson laid them to rest beside the charred remains of his porch, their graves marked with riverstones. The reunited nation found no value in his narrative. During the Reconstruction era, Tennessee favored stories of reconciliation over that of a gaunt widower who had once treated Union officers as target cards at a county fair. It was not until the 1920s that historians began to breathe life into his name, drawn from dusty pension records and widows' diaries, igniting discussions. Was he a principled irregular or merely a glorified murderer, a protector of his home or a man who had endured too much to cease? Today, his rifle is displayed in a Nashville museum, its notches smoothed by the touch of countless curious hands. Tour guides refer to him as the Civil War's deadliest shot. Yet old families along the Tennessee River still lower their voices when narrating how war transformed a tobacco farmer into a specter and how vengeance, once ignited, endures longer than any homestead. 36 notches, 36 souls. However, the true toll of Jack Hinson cannot be etched into wood. Consider this. How many fathers became snipers? How many farmers learned to quantify vengeance in bullets? And what is the price for a man who exchanges his plowshare for a rifle he would never relinquish? This is what they do not teach you. The Civil War was not merely a clash of armies. It was neighbors ambushing neighbors. It was fathers burying their children. And for every hero chronicled in history, there exists a Jack Hinson, a man who departed from his farm and stepped into the shadows, leaving us to ponder, was he justified? His rifle resides in a museum. His story is buried in the mud of Tennessee. And those 36 notches? They signify more than just kills.